Wisconsin lawmakers are proposing a new bill to protect children from AI chatbots. The legislation would fine companies whose chatbots encourage kids to harm themselves.
Our Wisconsin State Capitol Bureau Chief Vanessa Kelson breaks down a new bill aimed at protecting kids.
Artificial intelligence chatbots imitate human conversation. They retain information from previous conversations and can sustain ongoing dialogues. This bill would create penalties for these chatbots that don't have guardrails in place for the children that use them.
Our youth put a lot of stock into what these artificial intelligence tells them, and now it's evolved to conversation, just like you and I are having a conversation.
Republican State Representative Benjamin Franklin is one of the co-authors of the bill.
My son and my daughter, they have multiple different electronic devices available to them. Anytime that they get on an electronic device, even if it has really good security systems installed on it, they're still at risk every time they log online.
The bill targets chatbots that encourage kids to harm themselves, engage in suicidal ideation, participate in illegal activities, or discourages children from getting help in the first place. The chatbot operator would be fined $25,000 for each violation.
When you have basically these chatbots that are really intended to create friendships with kids, emotional support, constant communication, there's obviously ways that can go south very quickly.
These guardrails would have to be implemented for any Wisconsin child under 18, or if the AI bot perceives the user to be a child.
This is really about protecting children from basically unhealthy online content that unfortunately has led to suicide or other harmful behaviors.
The bill's authors say the legislation is modeled after bipartisan legislation in other states. This bill is still early in the process. Once it's formally introduced, it will still need to be passed by the state assembly and state senate. From the Wisconsin State Capitol, Vanessa Kelson.
This can be very dangerous online. If you or someone you know is struggling, there is help. You can call or text 988 to reach a mental health professional.